My mother mocked me as poor and put me in room 108, but at dinner I exposed their lies, and revealed I was the true heir to my grandfather's empire. Every family has its secrets, but I never imagined ours would be hidden within the luxurious walls of a five-star hotel. For years I was nothing more than a shadow beside my perfect sister, the one who received all the praise, while I was left with pity and silence. But this year, at our annual family reunion, everything changed. None of them knew that the very place we were gathering, this dazzling hotel, already belonged to me. And that night, a truth buried for decades would finally force us all to face it. I resolved to stay quiet and observe the yearly family reunion. My mother insisted on keeping the tradition, but for me, it always meant a weekend filled with relentless comparisons and scathing remarks. This year would be no different, except that the magnificent hotel where we would stay had become my property thanks to the bequest my grandfather had surreptitiously left me 6 months before. My heart was racing when I entered the lobby of the Hotel Miramar. I watched as everyone greeted my sister Sofia, a family favorite, with hugs and smiles. Nobody noticed me until my mother spotted me and grimaced. "I thought you wouldn't come, Elise," she remarked, not trying to hide her sadness. "I would do anything not to miss our family reunion." I responded with a smile that did not reach my eyes. My brother-in-law, Sofia's husband Marco, looked me up and down, assessing my attire as usual. My modest company was now a respected agency with international clients, but I never tried to correct their preconceptions, which wounded me the most. "It appears that the graphic design industry isn't so profitable after all," he remarked with a cynical smirk. This five-star hotel, with its impeccable gardens and ocean view, now belonged to me. My grandfather had always seen something in me that the rest of the family ignored. We distributed the rooms, my mother announced as manager Andres handed out the keys, and my sister and her husband received the presidential suite with ocean view. My parents, an executive suite, my cousins deluxe rooms, and me. "Elise, you'll stay in room 108 on the first floor, the room next to the laundry, the smallest and noisiest room in the hotel." Everyone exchanged glances, some with shame, others with poorly disguised amusement. Andres, the manager, appeared uncomfortable. "Ma'am, we could look for another option for the young lady," he began. But my mother interrupted him. "It's not necessary. Elise is simple. She doesn't need luxuries." I saw Andres's concern in my eyes. He knew who I really was, but we had agreed to keep my position as owner secret during this family reunion. "It's fine, Andres," I said calmly. "Room 108 will be perfect." I took the key and walked to the elevator, feeling my family's eyes on me. My cousin Valeria spoke to me on the way, while Elise, as usual, settled for the leftovers. The room was just as I remembered, modest, with a window facing the service area, and the continual sounds of the laundry machines. I sat down on the single bed and breathed deeply. During the welcome dinner at the hotel restaurant, my family occupied the best table, and my chair was partially hidden behind a column. I wasn't there to confront or humiliate my family by revealing that I was the owner. Rather, I was there to figure out why they treated me so poorly after 30 years. While everyone else got the most costly meals on the menu, I chose a simple salad. "Can't you afford something better, Elise?" my father asked with a mixture of mockery and pity. "We can treat you if you like. The salad is fine." "Thank you," I said, preserving my dignity. As usual, the conversation centered on Sofia's accomplishments, her recent promotion at the bank, and her new home in the exclusive area. "Our Sofia always knew what she wanted," my mother said proudly, "unlike Elise, who wasted her life with this drawing business." The head chef approached our table to personally greet the guests, and when he saw me, he made a small bow that did not go unnoticed. "Was the salad to your liking, Miss Elise?" he asked respectfully. "Delicious, Mateo." "Thank you," I replied. My family looked at me oddly. "Do you know the chef?" Sofia inquired, shocked. "We've crossed paths before," I responded vaguely. The fact was that I had personally hired Mateo 3 months earlier, after my grandpa had left me the hotel. As the night went, the insults directed at me became more cutting. The secret I kept was weighing on me more and more. Should I reveal the truth? What would they do if they knew that every insult, every humiliation occurred under my own roof? Andres approached discreetly. "Miss Elise, there is an urgent matter that requires your attention," he said quietly. "What could be so urgent for Elise?" Marco mocked. "Did they run out of colored pencils?" I stood up calmly, ignoring the comment, and said, "Excuse me. I'll be back in a moment." Andres looked concerned in the private office. "Miss, I can't continue watching how they treat you. You own this place." "I know, Andres. But I need to understand something before I reveal the truth. There's a family wound that's been open for a long time. I looked out the window at the dark sea, and I think I'm close to discovering why my family despises me so much. I returned to the table, where my family was still eating exclusive desserts. My cousin Diego was telling me about his recent purchase of a sports car, when my Aunt Teresa, who is always the most perceptive, remarked, "What did that employee want with you?" "Elise, do you know him from somewhere?" I felt all eyes on me. "Just a confusion with the reservation," I responded casually, taking a sip of water. Sofia mumbled to Marco loudly enough for me to hear, as she always did. That night, as everyone retired to their sumptuous rooms, I remained in the vacant lobby. Andres approached with a cup of tea. "Your grandfather would be proud of you," he whispered gently. "Dons always knew you would be the one to best care for his legacy." I smiled melancholically. My granddad was the only person who saw something exceptional in me. Andres shook his head firmly. "In the brief months you've been running the hotel, you've introduced more improvements than any prior owner, and the staff appreciates you." Don Alejandro was not wrong. The following day, at the breakfast buffet, I observed that numerous staff members greeted me with disguised reverence. My family was too busy pouring themselves the most exclusive delicacies to notice. "Elise, are you only eating that?" my mother asked, looking at my plate of fruit and yogurt. "That's why you're so slim." "You look sick." "I am absolutely healthy, Mom," I responded. "I just prefer to start the day with something light." Marco burst into laughter. "Light? Actually, it's economical. I bet you track every penny you spend." The comment elicited laughs around the table. I took a deep breath and concentrated on my breakfast. It was not the time for revelations. The morning was filled with activities, including a tour of the hotel, time in the pool, and treatments in the spa. Of course, my parents had planned everything to ensure that Sofia and her husband received the best possible treatment from me. There were just leftovers. "I'm sorry, but it appears that there is no more place for the premium massage," my mother informed me with feigned disappointment. "You will have to settle with a basic massage." Later, I discovered that she had purposefully canceled my reservation for the premium treatment, arguing it would be a waste on Elise. During lunch, the talk shifted to a topic: grandfather Alejandro's inheritance. "I can never understand why Dad sold the hotel before his death," my mother observed, gazing around nostalgically. "It was his biggest pride." My father said, "He certainly received an irresistible offer. Unfortunately, we never found out who bought it." Sofia sighed heavily. "If we still owned the hotel, we could stay for free. We could even offer Elise a nice room," she said, as if she were doing me a favor. I restrained a smile. If only they knew the truth about the bequest and the family mystery that I was about to uncover. That afternoon, while my parents and Sofia were on a yacht cruise, I went into my grandfather's old office, which is now my private office. Andres was waiting for me with a box containing documents. "I found what you requested for, Miss Elise," he continued, setting the box on the table. "These are your grandfather's personal records pertaining to your family." I began going through letters, photographs, and journals. Among them, I discovered a yellowed envelope from 15 years ago. It contained a letter from my mother to my grandfather, which left me speechless. "Dad, you need to understand that Elise is not like us. She never was. If you keep treating her as your favorite, you will only hurt her. She lacks the qualities necessary to prosper in this household. Sofia is the person who should inherit the hotel someday." My hands were shaking. I continued to read similar correspondence over the years. Letters in which my own mother attempted to persuade grandfather that I did not deserve his attention or wealth. She wrote letters about my purported failings and weaknesses. A handwritten message from my granddad was never mailed. Linda responded, "It makes me sad to watch how you treat your own kid. Elise possesses a spirit and intelligence that you cannot perceive. Someday you'll all realize your mistakes." The discovery struck me like a chilly wave. It wasn't just envy or familial rivalry. My mother had purposefully contrived my family's marginalization. "Are you okay, miss?" Andres inquired, concerned by my quiet. "No," I responded honestly. "But I shall be." I kept reading and found something much more frightening. My father and Marco had attempted to persuade grandfather to sell the hotel to them at a reduced price soon before his death. Their plan had failed when grandfather, suspicious of their intentions, decided to secretly leave it to me. A knock on the door interrupted my investigation. It was Daniela, my cousin. "Elise, what are you doing here? This area is only for authorized people," she said, looking curiously at the documents scattered on the table. Andres responded fast. The young girl was looking for information on the hotel's activities. Miss Daniela. Daniela did not appear convinced. Her eyes sharpened as she examined the office. Isn't it strange that they let you into the private office? They wouldn't even let us take a look. Maybe I'm not as insignificant as everyone thinks, I said while observing her. Something changed in her expression. For the first time, I saw a glimmer of doubt in her eyes. You were always grandfather's favorite, she was saying softly. We all knew it, but no one would say it. When Daniela left, I knew my secret wouldn't survive much longer. The family would begin to suspect, and I'd have to make a decision. The gala dinner was the main event of our family reunion, and the storm that had been brewing since my arrival arrived, bringing with it the opportunity for vengeance I had never realized I desired. I had to choose between continuing to be humiliated and revealing that I, the despised Elise, was now the owner of the empire they all desired. The hotel's main hall had been arranged with fresh flowers, candles, beautiful crystals, and linen tablecloths. I came purposefully late, dressed in a modest but elegant black dress I had made myself. Finally you show, my mother remarked irritably. We were about to order without you. I took my seat at the least advantageous spot at the table, as they had allotted me. Marco was already half drunk, boasting about his latest real estate investments. I bought 3 properties on the coast last month, and if I play my cards right, I could even buy a hotel like this someday. Sofia beamed brightly. My husband has business vision. Unlike other family members who are content to draw logos, my father raised his glass to Marco and Sofia, the true pride of this family. Everyone toasted while I kept my glass on the table. No one seemed to notice during the first course. Daniela was watching me intensely. Finally she spoke. Elise, I saw you today in the hotel's private office, and you seemed very comfortable there. A sudden silence fell over the table, and all eyes turned on me. What were you doing in restricted areas? My father asked, frowning. I took a sip of water. I was investigating some things about the hotel. Why would you do that? My mother asked. It's not like you're going to buy one. Marco let out a thunderous laugh. Elise owning a hotel? That would be funny. She can't even afford a good room. Andres approached our table with a bottle of special champagne. Miss Elise, the champagne you ordered for your family, he said. My mother blinked in surprise. We didn't purchase any. It's complimentary, he added. From me, I said calmly. From you? Sofia nearly choked. The tension at the table was palpable as Andres served the champagne. There are many things about me you don't know, I said simply. My father looked at me suspiciously and said, What are you talking about, Elise? If you have something to say, say it. I pondered my options. I could reveal my secret now. I didn't want to be like them, so I replied that I just wanted to make a kind gesture to celebrate the fact that we were still together as a family, despite the fact that they had humiliated me for years. Their expressions of surprise were clear. They didn't expect generosity from me after how they had treated me. The dinner continued, but something had changed subtly. Valeria looked at me with intrigue, as if she were reconsidering who I really was, and Sofia began talking about grandfather's inheritance during dessert. I'd never understood why grandfather sold the hotel secretly. It was the family patrimony. Maybe he knew some would try to take advantage, I responded, staring directly at my father and Marco. What are you insinuating? Marco reacted abruptly defensive. Nothing, I said gently. Just that grandfather was more intelligent than everyone assumed. My father looked at me with a mixture of suspicion and nervousness. Elise, if you know anything about the hotel sale, you should share it with the family. Now I'm part of the family, I wondered. A few hours ago, I was the poor relative who didn't even deserve a decent room. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. My mother tried to change the subject, but I continued. You know, grandfather told me many things, and I spent hours with him while you were busy with your important lives. He told me about his plans for the hotel, and what he wanted for his legacy. And what did he say? Sofia asked, unable to hide her curiosity. He told me that a family business is like a mirror, reflecting the values of those who run it. Marco smashed his fist on the table, saying, Enough riddles. If you have something to say, say it clearly. At that point, the hotel's general manager approached our table and apologized for interrupting us. I just wanted to make sure everything was to your liking, especially for you, Miss Elise. My family was uncomfortable with the preferential treatment I was receiving. Everything is perfect, Diego. Thank you, I replied with a smile. My father demanded to know why they treated you like you were someone important. I took a deep breath. I didn't intend to reveal my secret that night, but the situation was escalating, so I had to make a decision. They know my work, I replied, and they simply respect what I do. Drawing logos, Marco mocked. I design corporate identities for international companies, I corrected. My agency has 30 employees and clients on 3 continents. Our income exceeded $3 million last year, which surprised them so much that my mother nearly dropped her glass. You're lying, Sofia said. If you were so successful, you would have bragged about it. I responded that, unlike some, I don't require regular affirmation from others. And there's a difference between humility and allowing myself to be treated like trash. If you're so successful, why did you accept staying in that horrible room? My mother asked, genuinely perplexed. I replied honestly, wanting to know if there was any limit to your contempt for me. My words fell like slabs on the table. For the first time, I saw shame on some of their faces. Not all, but it was a start. Elise, my father began. But I interrupted him. I'm not finished, I said firmly. For years I endured your comments, pitying looks, and constant contempt, all because I didn't take the path you considered appropriate. My hands were shaking, but my voice remained steady, as if decades of silence had finally found their voice. Grandfather taught me that a person's worth is measured by how they treat others, not by what they own or how they appear. He saw something in me that you could never see because you were too busy comparing me to your idea of success. The silence that followed was deafening, and I could see emotions crossing their faces. Disbelief, shame, confusion, and, in some cases, the beginning of an uncomfortable realization. If this is true, my father finally said, why didn't you say anything? Would you have listened? I asked. Would you have found another way to diminish my accomplishments? He had no answer for that. We all knew the truth. The dinner ended in an uncomfortable silence. As the others went, Valeria lingered behind and sat alongside me. I always knew you were different, she whispered gently. I'd never understood why until today. Our eyes met in a moment of mutual understanding. Elise, she continued. There's something more, isn't there? There's something about this hotel and your grandfather that you haven't said. I nodded slowly, knowing that everyone would know the next morning. During breakfast, the dynamics had subtly changed, and my family watched me with a mixture of confusion and curiosity. From my modest room next to the laundry, I could hear the hum of the machines mixing with the bird songs. I dressed carefully, choosing an ivory-tailored suit I had reserved for special occasions. Today would undoubtedly be an occasion none of us would forget. My revelation the night before had shaken the foundations of the family hierarchy, but they still didn't know the whole truth. My mother was the first to approach, saying, Elise dear, we didn't know your business was doing so well, with a tense smile. You should have told us. I tried. My father intervened, adopting a conciliatory tone that he had never used with me before, and my voice was calm without a trace of bitterness for years. Every time I mentioned a new client or an important project, you changed the subject to talk about Sofia's accomplishments, and my sister blushed. We're proud of you, of course, but Marco remained skeptical. Andres approached our table at 10 a.m., and he said, that's impressive if it's true, emphasizing the last part. Of course, revenue isn't the same as profit, and my profit margin last year was 28%, so I responded without getting upset. After taxes, his expression changed to one of surprise and almost respect. Miss Elise, everything is ready for the meeting you requested. My family looked at me suspiciously. I planned a brief presentation about the hotel's history, which I discussed standing up. I felt it would be interesting to you because it was so significant to my grandfather. My grandfather's lawyer, Ricardo Mendez, was present in the main conference room, an elegant space with large windows offering panoramic ocean views. I was surprised to see not only the hotel's management team, but also an older, distinguished-looking man, Ricardo Torres. What does this mean, Elise? My father asked, suddenly alarmed. Please take your seats, I indicated, pointing to the front row of chairs. Once everyone was seated, I positioned myself in front of. My heart was racing, but my voice remained steady. As you know, this hotel was the crown jewel of Grandfather Alejandro's businesses. He built it from the ground up, transforming a small inn into one of the most prestigious establishments on the coast. I turned on the projector, which displayed old photos of the hotel in its early days. My family watched with a mixture of nostalgia and confusion. What you may not know, I continued, is what really happened to the hotel after his death. My mother tensed visibly. Grandfather sold the hotel before dying, but we never knew to whom. That's not entirely accurate. Lawyer Torres intervened, standing beside me. Don Alejandro did not sell the hotel. He transferred it to a trust. A trust? My father repeated, frowning. Why weren't we notified? Because it wasn't relevant to you. Mendes explained with professional coolness. The trust had a single beneficiary. All eyes were on me. I could see how the parts fit together in their thoughts. It can't be, Sofia muttered. I nodded slowly. Grandfather left me at the hotel. I'd been the owner for 6 months, and the silence that followed was complete, as if the air itself had stopped moving. The reactions varied from surprise to fury, passing through the most profound shock. Marco was the first to recover his voice. This is ludicrous. Why would he leave you? You are his most prized treasure. That's a fantastic question, I said, gazing straight at my parents. And I think Mom might have an idea. My mother paled instantaneously. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Mom, I found your letters. The ones you sent to Grandfather, attempting to persuade him that I did not deserve his attention or inheritance. Several gasps were audible around the room. My mother appeared to have shrunk into her chair. I also discovered something else. I continued to indicate Andres, who gave folders to each family member. The documents reveal that Dad and Marco attempted to coerce Grandfather into selling them the hotel at a reduced price soon before his death. My father opened the packet with trembling hands. Inside were copies of communications, phony acquisition proposals, and false evaluations that undervalued the property. This is out of context, he mumbled. No, it is not. Lawyer Mendez stepped in. Don Alejandro presented me the documentation. That's when he decided to change his will and leave the hotel to Elise, the one person he could trust to carry on his legacy. Marco sprang up abruptly, his face flushed with rage. This is a conspiracy. You certainly exploited the elderly man or the lawyer. You lack the necessary qualifications to manage this type of business. The data indicate otherwise, I responded calmly. Revenue at the hotel has climbed by 18% in the 6 months since I took over. Customer satisfaction has increased, and we have been nominated for 2 Hospitality Excellence Awards. Andres nodded in agreement. The management team expressed pride and admiration. My mother seemed genuinely perplexed. If you are the owner, why did you agree to remain in that awful room? Why did you allow us to treat you that way? It was the question I had been waiting for. Because I needed to understand, I responded, my voice breaking with passion. I needed to know if you truly considered me as useless, or if you had a deeper reason for your scorn. The tears threatened to pour, but I remained tough. And what I learned was far more painful than I had imagined. It wasn't that you thought I had no value. You were afraid of what would happen if others, particularly my grandfather, recognized my worth. My mother's gaze fell, unwilling to meet mine. The letters are obvious, Mom. You couldn't stand the fact that my grandfather loved me. You couldn't accept that he recognized something wonderful in me. Why? What have I done to deserve this? The subsequent silence was broken by a muffled sob. My mother appeared to have fallen beneath the weight of decades of deceit. You were just like him, she finally said. You have the same look and way of seeing the world. When you were younger, he used to say you were his living image, with his business energy. She paused and breathed shakily. And I was constantly a disappointment to him. When you showed up with your imagination and determination, I realized I was never smart or ambitious enough. I noticed how his eyes lit up when he talked to you, which they never did with me. The revelation landed like a bomb in the room. Decades of anger, maternal jealousy, and an unspoken competition. So you decided to ensure that I never showed, I concluded, feeling a mix of empathy and sadness. You told my entire family that I was inferior, and that my ambitions were unimportant. My mother did not refute it. She could not. And you? I addressed my father. You identified a business opportunity. If I remained isolated from the family, I would not pose a threat to your intentions with the hotel. My father appeared to have aged 10 years in the past few minutes. Meanwhile, Sofia stayed silent, probably contemplating what she had just learned about our family relations. That's when I made the most crucial decision of my life. Despite everything, I finally spoke, breaking the oppressive hush that had settled over the room. I'm still a member of this family. My comments appeared to float in the air, surprising and unsettling everyone present. We aren't here to settle accounts, I continued. I could have embarrassed you from the start, kicked you out of the hotel, or treated you the way you treated me, but it would have simply perpetuated the cycle of resentment that has plagued this family for far too long. My mother gazed at me with red eyes, a look of guilt and bewilderment on her face. I didn't fully understand why grandfather left me in this motel. Now I understand it wasn't simply about business. It was about providing us the opportunity to heal. I strolled to the room's largest window and gazed out at the sea that stretched before us, the same sea that my grandfather saw every morning from his office. Grandfather left something else in the trust, I announced, turning to face them. A letter to be presented to the family 6 months after I gained possession of the hotel. That was today. Lawyer Mendez nodded and removed an envelope from his briefcase. He gave it to me seriously. Mendez indicated that Don Alejandro's final wish goes beyond the legal aspects. He particularly demanded that it be read in front of the entire family. My hands trembled as I opened the mail. I took out the pages written in my grandfather's distinctive handwriting and began reading aloud. Dear family, if you're hearing these words, it means Elise has taken over as owner of Hotel Miramar. And the time has arrived for you to discover my genuine motivations. This hotel embodies my heritage. However, a legacy encompasses more than just structures and businesses. A legacy can also be defined as the values we pass down to future generations. For years, I watched with sadness as our family fragmented. I saw scorn for Elise, who, oddly, is the most like me in spirit and vision. Linda, my darling daughter, was always trying to prove her worth to me by competing against her own daughter. It was not essential. I loved her for who she was, not for who she thought she needed to be to impress me. Marco and Sofia based their lives on appearances and superficial goals. True success is judged not in material possessions or prestige, but in the integrity with which we live. I left the hotel to Elise, not only because I trust her competence to run it, but also because I believe her heart will heal our family's wounds. My final goal is that you utilize this revelation to reflect, to admit past mistakes, and to envision a future in which mutual respect replaces hatred, and family love triumphs over individual ambitions. The hotel is now legally Elise's, but it is spiritually yours, if you are ready to create a new family dynamic based on respect and acceptance. With eternal love, Alejandro. When I finished reading, several individuals in the room, including hotel workers, were in tears. The stillness that followed was packed with passion, realization, and long-suppressed facts. My mom was the first to speak. She was murmuring the entire time. All this time, I was competing with my own daughter, attempting to demonstrate something to a father who already loved me. She stood slowly and approached me with an emotional voice, which surprised me. Elise, I'm not sure whether you can ever forgive me. I was an awful mother, blinded by my own inadequacies. I noticed something in her eyes that I had not seen before. Genuine recognition, vulnerability, and the onset of profound regret. My father, meantime, appeared crushed. Your grandfather was right, he conceded almost to himself. I spent my entire life trying to impress others, ignoring what truly important. Sofia remained seated, mute, with an inexplicable face. Finally she stood and approached me. I've never understood why grandfather preferred you, she said softly. Now I see. While I sought his approval, you sought his wisdom. While I wanted his money, you wanted his legacy. Her voice was sorrowful and accepting, not hostile. However, Marco appeared unmoved. He stood abruptly, his face flushed with anger. And I suppose now we should feel guilty that we should congratulate you for inheriting an empire you didn't build, he said, expecting Sofia to agree. But she stayed by my side. Marco, I said calmly. The hotel is legally mine, and that will not change, but what we do from here as a family depends on all of us, Lawyer Mendez said quietly. Actually, there's an additional cautiel that we haven't discussed yet. We all looked at him, shocked. Don Alejandro stated that Elise might allocate minority holdings in the hotel to other family members if they shown a dedication to the values he defended. The revelation landed like a bombshell. My family gazed at me with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. I clarified that I am not seeking servility in return for shares. What grandfather desired was real reconciliation, uninfluenced by economic considerations. So, what do you propose? My father asked in a tone that suggested he was eager to listen. I took a deep breath. This was the moment I had waited for. The ability to turn pain into something constructive. I propose that we recognize the truth. We are a dysfunctional family that has caused serious harm to its members. We cannot change the past, but we can choose how our future will be. I halted and looked each one in the eyes. The hotel will continue to operate under my supervision, but I am willing to establish a family council in which everyone has a voice. Not for operational decisions, but to ensure that grandfather's legacy lives on through philanthropic efforts, community service, and the principles he defended. And the shares? Marco inquired, still suspicious. They will be gained over time, I stated firmly. Not with flattery toward me, but with deeds that show you actually comprehended grandfather's message. My mother approached and with some hesitation, took my hands in hers. I don't deserve a second chance, she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. But if you're willing to give me one, I promise I'll do everything possible to be the mother I should have been from the beginning. I noticed that my tears were surfacing. Years of longing for the parental love I never experienced were realized in that moment of shared vulnerability. That's all I ever wanted, Mom, I said softly. My father joined us first, followed by Sofia. Marco remained detached, watching the event with a mix of confusion and hatred. I need time to process all of this, he finally muttered, walking to the door. Take all the time you need, I said. The door will be open when you're ready. After Marco left, the mood in the room shifted. It was as if an unseen weight had been lifted, allowing us to breathe normally for the first time in decades. The hotel workers, who had observed the entire incident, appeared greatly moved. Andres began subtly signaling that they should leave us alone during this family period. When we were left with only ourselves and lawyer Mendez, Sofia asked, "What do we do now? How do we begin to repair so much damage?" With honesty, I replied. Grandfather used to say that family wounds only heal when they're exposed to air. We've kept this resentment in darkness for too long. My dad gave a subtle nod. You have his wisdom, Elise. You always have. Mendez rose up and took his briefcase. My work here is done. Donner Nisa would be pleased with how you handled this, Elise. As he approached the door, he said, By the way, there's an additional box of your grandfather's personal documents in my office. He said that you'd be particularly interested in his diaries from the years he developed the hotel. After Mendez went, my family and I remained in the room, engulfed in a silence that, for the first time, felt meditative rather than uncomfortable. I never asked you about your business, my mother remarked abruptly. $3 million in revenue, 30 staff. You must excel at what you do. I grinned slightly. I am, and I would like to show you my work someday. I'd like that, she said with seriousness I hadn't heard in her voice before. Sofia, who is always realistic, interjected. So, what happens to the remainder of the family weekend? Do we continue with our planned activities? I took a time to reflect. I believe so, but with some alterations. To begin, I'll proceed to the apartment that relates to me as owner. And what should we do about Marco? My father inquired. I said, well, give him space. Some individuals require more time than others to embrace the facts. That night, as the workers moved my possessions to the hotel's main suite, I experienced an unusual mix of feelings. Victory, sure, but not the petty victory of vengeance, but the deeper one of breaking a toxic cycle. From my own patio, I gazed out at the same sea that my grandfather adored. The salty wind stroked my face, carrying the perfume of fresh possibilities. You were right, grandfather, I mumbled into the wind. True power isn't in humiliating those who have hurt us, but in giving them the chance to change, I remembered my grandfather saying. Elise, a hotel is just like a family. Each room is unique. Each visitor contributes their own narrative. The key is to make everyone feel appreciated, not despite their differences, but because of them. For the first time in my life, I believed our family had the potential to become the type of hotel that my grandfather envisioned. A location where everyone could find their own space while still feeling a part of something bigger. The road would be long and likely difficult. Some wounds might take years to completely heal, if at all. But we'd taken the first, and possibly most significant step. We had looked truth in the eyes and resolved not to look away. Jacker's epilogue. A year has passed since that startling family reunion. Hotel Miramar thrives under my leadership, with changes that grandfather would have approved. A scholarship initiative for youth from the local community. Rooms designed for persons with disabilities and a strong commitment to sustainability. My bond with my family has grown in ways I never thought possible. My mother and I have a weekly lunch appointment to progressively repair our friendship. She is no longer looking to compete with me, but to fully understand me. When we discuss design or business, I can sense a gleam of genuine parental pride in her eyes. Sofia was the biggest surprise. After thinking about her life and principles, she chose to return to university to study social work. She said, I want to build something meaningful on my own merits. Her metamorphosis was dramatic and genuine. My father discovered an unexpected purpose in the hotel's community program, where he now organizes events for young entrepreneurs. He claims that teaching them what he has learned, even his failures, gives him a feeling of purpose that money and position cannot supply. It took Marco 6 months to contact me again. When he eventually did, it was to offer me a job, not a free steak. He now oversees the hotel's expansion department, where his ambition, when channeled correctly, is proving beneficial. Room 108, where they put me that first day, has been converted into a tiny museum telling the history of the hotel and its founder. At the end of the tour, visitors will see grandfather's letter framed as a reminder that family businesses are all about values and legacy. Every day as I go through the corridors of this hotel, which is both my inheritance and obligation, I sense my grandfather's presence guiding me. I chose to share my secret not for vengeance, but because it provided the prospect of healing. And, while the journey has not been easy, the family we are creating now is stronger and more authentic than the one we pretended to be. As the sign at the hotel entryway states, we don't build barriers, but bridges. We don't offer rooms, but houses. That is the true secret of Hotel Miramar, as well as the most significant legacy my grandfather left for me. Some stories are more than just stories. They are mirrors of life. If this one moved you, please help us continue to tell additional stories that ought to be heard. Become a member. Join us. Thank you very much, and have a great day.